Greetings and blessings, my brothers and sisters in Christ. I am Robert, and this is the I Am Matthew podcast, where we talk about walking out our Christian faith and trying to be in the world, but not of the world. So today, I'm going to get right into this episode because this is going to be the first I Am Matthew podcast episode where we're going to actually flip the script on what we normally do. So right now, I'm actually not in the normal area where I record. I'm actually sitting at my kitchen table. Normally, my regular spot's upstairs. And I'm not alone. So before I introduce my guest, I'm going to let you in on a secret because, well, it's not about to be a secret anymore. First off, I stutter a lot. I also am not a public speaker, nor am I grammatically correct. I am a sucker for putting in quotes from movies or quotes of people that I've had the pleasure to get to know. And this is one many who have known me for a while, I will say, and that's more gooder. That's right, more gooder. My live sound teacher taught me that, and I will say his name. I will not say his name to protect him, but I love it, and it's good for a laugh. I know it should be better, but I like more gooder. I also get off track a lot, but that's probably not a secret to you. But these things I wanted to let you know because they're going to become apparent. Because since I have a guest, I'm not alone, I can't edit out the majority of those things. So when we get to our guest, it's going to be raw and unscripted. So let me talk about my wife. Yes, that is correct. Kaci is my wife. She has agreed to be the first interview episode for the podcast. I've known her for about 19 years now and married for almost 18 years. And I think I've said that a few times now. But I'm not going to say much because I'm sure it'll all come out. So, my beautiful wife, welcome to this side of the podcast.
Hello.
Hello, that's all you got?
That's all I got.
Well, I'm very excited to do this with you. I really wanted to, and I feel like to get started doing interviews, I figured the first one would be my wife because I'm comfortable with you.
Exactly, you're most comfortable with me.
Yes, so that way if I mess up, it's no big deal. It doesn't sound too horribly wrong because I know you'll just come in and catch the other side of it. So, do you want to explain how we first met?
How we first met?
Yes. Let's keep all of the really bad. Just remember, this is a Christian podcast, and that was BC days.
Yes, it was definitely BC days for both of us. I was 17, and we'll just say that I was seeing a friend of yours whenever I met you, and he, I think, unwillingly introduced us, actually accidentally.
He didn't know that that would probably be a bad thing for him.
Probably so. And how we actually got together was a double date where I brought a friend that was supposed to be for you, and then the two of us were together, but the intention all along was because I wanted to get to know you, because I liked you. I liked you better than the friend who I don't know how he would feel about that, but it's kind of obvious.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And the thing is that I didn't even know. I was totally oblivious to that. I just got out of a bad relationship, and I was getting ready to go to music school. I was getting ready to go to St. Paul, so I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, I messed all that up for you.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you did. I really am. I'm glad that all that happened because, I mean, I don't know where I'd be right now. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for you. So I guess the next thing is just tell us kind of your story. Who is Kaci?
Okay, I'll do my best. So I was born and raised right here in Chillicothe. Very small family. I was an only child with my parents. And we didn't go to church very often. Occasionally we did, but it was very few and far between. Because a lot of when I was growing up, it wasn't necessarily that we didn't have some of the knowledge of God, because we did. It was just, my dad definitely had the mentality, especially, I think my mom is kind of going along with it, of you don't need the church to be a Christian. And while that's not necessarily wrong, it is very important. The church is very, very important. And the thing is the foundation wasn't right. So no, you don't necessarily need the church to be a Christian, but you have to be a Christian to be a Christian. And we weren't. I mean, we had the knowledge, but that was it. there were several traumatic experiences growing up, but I mean, my parents did a great job. They were amazing. Probably the most traumatic, though, was whenever I was 16, my parents got divorced, and it was really hard to deal with because they never fought. I mean, still to this day, it's like they're best friends. We do stuff together all the time. We go on camping trips, and my mom and stepdad are in one camper, and then my dad and stepmom are in the very next camper right next to them. So it's very weird. So it was very, very hard as a teenager to go through that. And, you know, I still remember the biggest thing being I didn't understand how my mom could do that to my dad. And I mean, now I know a lot more, so I understand a lot more of what happened and what all went into that. But anyway, that was very, very traumatic. So funnily enough, you know, we got married whenever I was 18, you were 19, but whenever I was 18. But that same year, we had 3 weddings because my dad got married that same year to my stepmom. And then my mom got married to my stepdad, and then we got married later that year. So, I mean, it was a busy year that year.
It was. It was absolutely a busy year that year.
Yeah. But, you know, I did, luckily enough, meet the love of my life whenever I was 17. So that was definitely a God moment. I was headed down a very bad path. And even though there were a lot of things about our relationship that weren't great, I definitely feel like God definitely put that in place.
God definitely orchestrated that.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time that I was meant to be with you. And
I agree.
And even despite the fact that neither one of us were truly Christians, we had the knowledge of Christ, but we didn't actually know Christ. I felt God that put we were meant to be together, and so I'm very thankful for that. Sorry, Sorry, I jumped in there.
You're fine. That's fine. But yeah, and then right after I graduated high school, we got married. We moved away, moved again. But I mean, we had a roller coaster marriage, I think. I mean, we had times where it was great. It was phenomenal, and we had a great relationship. And then there were times that it was okay, and there were times that it was really, really bad. Just being honest. There were lots of really bad times, but there were also really good times. But I really feel like those first several years of our marriage were very much a roller coaster.
And her talking about the bad times, most of that was orchestrated by me because I had a very, very bad anger problem. We've talked about it on the podcast. I was very self-centered. So when she's talking about the high times was whenever I actually tried to be selfless. The middle times is when it was just kind of neither here nor there. And the low times, I think, is really just whenever I indulged in my selfishness.
I don't think it was all you, though. I mean, I still somewhat struggle with anger, but I mean, I think we can admit I had an anger problem, too. There were a lot of times that, like, the yelling and stuff like that, it was not one-sided by any means. I think it was both of us. Neither one of us were in a good Neither one of us were in a good place. So we both definitely added to that, most definitely. And then, so, I mean, that was the first 7 years of our marriage. We had great times. We had horrible times. We suffered through several different moves, you know, between different faiths and such like that. And then, crazily enough, we decided that we wanted to bring a child into our chaos.
Absolutely.
Which I on one hand, I don't think was a great idea, but, you know, it ended up being such an amazing thing. Unfortunately, you know, I know you've talked about it on your podcast whenever I was 6 months pregnant. You did get arrested, and that was horrible. I mean, it was such a horrible thing because not only did I have that, and then, you know, to also find out that not only had you been arrested, but, you know, you told me that you had been unfaithful to me. And I mean, that was all stuff that was so hard to deal with, especially at 6 months pregnant. I mean, you're emotional when you're pregnant. It was hard. Just being honest, it was hard.
I'm sure it was. And I'm sure, and that was really that was our rock bottom.
Yeah,
I mean,
that 100% was. I mean, I still remember because I didn't know what you had been arrested for, what was going on, anything. And I was literally, to begin with, we'll go back. I didn't even know you'd been arrested. I mean, I was in panic mode. I didn't know if you were dead on the side of the road, what had gone on, anything. We were trying to call different places, figure things out. And then, we ran into a cop who said he would look up if there had been any wrecks or anything whatsoever with your vehicle. And then that's whenever we found out that you had been arrested. He wouldn't tell us what for, but just that you had been arrested. And so I knew where they would take you. And so Mom and I got in the truck and we drove and sat in the parking lot outside of there. And I completely broke down and I just bawled and I called out to God. And I'm like, please, I don't know what this is. I don't know what the solution is, but I know I can't do it on my own. And I didn't know what was going to be there for us, if there was still going to be able to be in us. I didn't know anything.
Absolutely.
But I had enough knowledge to know that I couldn't do it by myself. And that I needed him. And
did you do that before I showed up, before they brought me in? Did they?
I don't know. I never saw when they brought you in.
So was that night? Was that night?
That was that first night. Actually, yes. It probably would have been about the. I mean, probably in that course of you getting over there. I mean, every time we saw a vehicle pull in that parking lot, where we would go over there and try to look to see if we could see you. I never did, but and then we finally, I don't know. I think it was like really early in the morning. It was like 2:00 in the morning or something like that. And we went in and asked the woman who was at the front desk if she could give us any information, and she said, "I can't." And she said, "Who are you looking for?" And I told her, and she went back there and then she came back out there and she goes, "All I can tell you is that he's here and he seems to be okay." And I'm like, "Okay, I can deal with that."
So basically, what I was just trying to figure out was, so basically you basically surrendered to the Lord before I did, because that would have been later on in the night whenever I surrendered, or it would have been late that night, early that next morning whenever I surrendered to the Lord.
Well, I mean, I knew it was the same night. I didn't know as far as like timing or anything like that, but it probably might have been a little bit earlier.
Because if you're talking about the Polk County Jail,
yes,
or the holding area where they bring people in.
Yes.
So, because I didn't give myself to the Lord until I actually got over to the actual jail, way down there.
Yeah.
And actually sitting in my second jail cell, because remember I had all that other stuff happen. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean that was real. That was our rock bottom. That's
Absolutely.
where we both realized we couldn't do it by ourselves. And then go ahead. I mean, and this is your story. This is my story.
Yeah, but so I mean, I didn't know what we were looking at. I didn't know anything from you. I didn't know if it was all mumbo jumbo. I mean, I didn't know anything, but I just knew that I needed him. And then it was so hard that next morning whenever you called me and told me everything, but it was also amazing that I knew that I had surrendered my life to God. And then to hear you say, "I have surrendered my life to God and I've asked for forgiveness and I need yours too." And it was one of those things that it's so amazing that we were both so horrible. And I mean, I had no knowledge of anything, but to know that he brought us both right there in one circumstance, and he brought us both to the Lord right there. It's just, it's amazing. I love how he works. I truly do. And then, whenever you got out and we got to start going to church and everything, and
at Stillwater Christian Life Center.
Yes. And there were a lot of things that, I mean, they still weren't great by any means, but we were both trying.
Yes, absolutely.
I still had times where I didn't know what it was going to look like. I knew that God had saved me. I knew that God had saved you. And I knew that whatever it was, that we could get through it together with him. And no matter what we were facing, I mean, we faced a lot.
Oh, we did.
Since then. I mean, not just with that, but we faced so much since then. But I knew that it would be okay. And I mean, not necessarily okay, but I knew that, one of the things that I've had a few people ask me about is, how did I stick with you through all of that? And ultimately, it's because I knew it's exactly what God wanted. God put us together, even though we were not Christians whenever we met.
Yeah.
100%. I guarantee you, I know without a shadow of a doubt that God put us together.
Absolutely.
And God orchestrated so much in our lives, even before we came to know him. And so...
And this is something that I've talked about too, is that even in our BC days, we still knew divorce wasn't the option. We knew that no matter what, we needed to stick it out, because really honestly, divorce, I mean, now there were times that we got upset with each other and we felt like it was close to the end, but we always figured out a way to hold on.
Yeah.
And I think that's really missing, because I look at our marriage, I mean, even up to that point, and nobody else our age would have ever let it got to that point. They would have gave up, they would have went home, they would have went back to their separate ways doing their own things. And yet God has instilled in each of us a thing to say, marriage is, it's hard, but you have to work at it. So
most definitely. And we still work at it every single day.
Absolutely.
I mean, we still definitely have times that aren't amazing, but I would love to say that once we both came to know Christ, everything was easy breezy after that, but it wasn't. I mean, we dealt with the court system, even after our daughter was born for so long.
Yep.
And then, whenever you finally did go to prison, I was a single mom, married, but I was a single mom for 2.5 years. And, luckily I was able to move back to where family was. And so I had the other support of other family members and stuff, but I was still trying to do everything on my own, trying to raise our daughter on my own. There was so much of it that was so hard. And, it's definitely in those hard times whenever you lean into God and know that everything is exactly how He wants it to be. You just have to lean into that. And then, it was a year after you came home, we got the diagnosis of my cancer. And, by the time they found it, it was already stage 4, and we had to do surgery to remove over half my tongue.
So I want to interject this right now, y'all. So my wife, this I'm gonna say this part. So my wife is actually talking to you right now. She is missing over 50% of her tongue, and to me, it's hard to believe. The only way that I can tell you, because if you call her voicemail and you get her her automated voice message, that's my wife before she had her surgery, and this is her now. And I think it's just quite amazing how much or how well you actually can speak, minus the fact that you're missing over half of your tongue.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that are still really hard to see. I've gotten really good at faking it. I mean, there are certain sounds that I still honestly cannot make, but there's certain things that I've figured out how to make the sound that sounds very similar, and so it is harder to pick up on that. Now, sometimes you can still definitely tell. There are still certain things that are hard to understand whenever I talk, but yeah.
Most of the time, it's just because I'm not paying attention.
Well, yeah, that too. But whenever they did the surgery, they did remove over half my tongue, and then found that it had spread to my lymph nodes. So they removed my lymph nodes. We had to do chemo and radiation, and not being over dramatic, that process almost killed me.
There were several times where honestly, you should have been dead.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, several times. And whenever we went to the hospital before my treatments were actually supposed to be over, and I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and the doctors there several different times, you should not be alive. And there were several things that they had to do, surgeries that they had to do during that time, and being honest with me, telling me you might not survive this.
Yeah.
And so I can't say that, once we came to Christ, it was all sunshine and rainbows, but it definitely, everything that we've gone through, and I feel like we've gone through harder stuff since we came to know Christ than what we ever dealt with before coming to know Christ.
I don't know. I don't want to draw that comparison.
No, I'm just saying for us, I feel like there's been more stuff since then. But at the same time, I feel like it's been easier than any of the little stuff we dealt with before. I feel like that little stuff was so much harder to deal with than the big stuff now, because you still have Christ, and
yes,
that no matter what. I mean, and during my cancer and all of that, there were some really real times of not knowing if I was still going to be here, or if I was going to be in eternity with Him, and knowing that that's okay. Yeah, because and it just boggles my mind. I don't understand how people can go through cancer treatment and have no hope, really, quite honestly, because
if you don't have hope that there is a life after this, then what's literally happening is your body is just dying slowly, agonizingly, and the treatments aren't fun. Chemo and radiation isn't fun at all. And you're literally dying, and you're thinking this is just like a slow burn until you die. And if you don't believe in Christ, what's next?
Absolutely.
What's next?
I know, absolutely. I mean, they're being in those treatment rooms whenever you're going through chemo, it's not just you in the room. I mean, there's several other people around you. And not trying to be cliche, but you can definitely tell the difference between the ones who know Christ and the ones who don't. Because the ones who don't, they look so defeated. And I'm not saying that the ones that know Christ don't look defeated. It's just different.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I know it was hard. I know there were times that I was definitely way, way down. And people probably thought that I was crazy. But you could still, even in those times, several of those nurses told me, you could still see it in me. Even whenever it was so, so hard. You could still see that in me, and I could see it in other people as well. But every single time I felt myself feeling so, so sorry for those people who did not have Christ.
Why did you feel sorry for those people that did not have Christ?
Well, ultimately, because whether they made it through or whether they didn't, there was no hope. There was not really any future. And it was just.
I could kind of see that, because honestly, if you have no hope, if you're going through all those things and there is no hope, then it would be really hard to, again, like I said before, you're literally slow burning to death, and there's no hope in that. So, all right, so let's get past that. So you went through your cancer radiation treatments, and so what next? What happened after you went through your chemo and radiation treatments?
There's not a whole lot that family got on since then. I would like to say that it felt great. After treatments were over, everything turned around and everything was great. But
let's first give the audience this.
I know I was going to say that.
Okay, go ahead.
My cancer is completely gone.
Yes.
It has been completely gone, confirmed through PET scans since October of 2020. So it is completely gone.
That's right.
Praise God.
Amen. Amen.
Praise God. I mean, I don't know how many people you know, but I mean, to have stage 4 cancer and to come back and know that I'm still here, I'm still here this many years later, and still no signs of the cancer returning, and everything is clear.
But it's not without consequence, right?
It's not. I mean, those treatments are hard, not only during that time, but those treatments are hard on our body and have long-term consequences. I have so many problems now with, I can't remember certain things, Sorry if I get off track on this, because I do lose my train of thought a lot. My kidneys definitely do not cooperate. My thyroid doesn't cooperate. I mean, I have so many organs within my body that have decided, hey, nope, we're not working today. But it's like an everyday situation. And while I'm not to the point of needing dialysis, I mean, if severe sickness or any other treatments would put me there fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So I do have to be kind of cautious of what I do and making sure that I try not to get sick again, because that is a really, really real consequence that could happen if I do get sick again. But, I just make the best of what I'm given. I'm still here. I still get to praise the Lord. I still get to serve the Lord. And I still get to be with my family. So I just make the best of it, definitely.
And I agree with that. The thing, I forgot what I was saying. Here's what's going to be the real problem, folks, is that she talks about that, because my wife, she used to be very on tack with things, and now saying that she has some forgetful moments. And I've always been forgetful, so I'm not. Our
house is real interesting sometimes.
It is real interesting sometimes, because if one of us forgot, it used to be one of us forgot, the other person would help us remember. And now it's gotten to the point where it's like, we both forgot that. We both dropped the ball on that.
Yeah, it's like we're 80, but we're not.
It's like we're 80, but we're not. That is totally true. Like I said, I totally lost my train of thought too, but that's okay. That's okay. So we went through the chemo and radiation, and this is one of the things that I was going to talk about. So your energy level, because you were a full-time teacher before all of this happened, and now, you're disabled.
Yeah, very true. I was a full-time high school teacher, and I absolutely loved it. I miss teaching high school so much. I know there's so many people who think I'm crazy whenever I say that, teaching high schoolers, they have all the attitudes they do. But oh man, did I love them. And I loved so much doing that. But I just can't. I mean, there are days that it's hard for me to unload and load the dishwasher. And, if I take a shower, I mean, this is sad, but I can't take a shower every day. Because if I do, then I'm completely wiped out and can't do hardly anything.
Yeah.
And, making meals and such like that. I mean, all of those things, they have to be fairly easy meals. So, it.
But, and if any of you haven't had my wife's cooking is excellent. So even though she says simple meals, that stuff is still fantastic.
I appreciate that. And I mean, I do get compliments, especially, whenever I cook for people at church and stuff. But I mean, I do have to be very cautious of what all I do. And I mean, there's a lot of times that you have to help me make meals and such so that it doesn't all fall on me. Because there's a lot of times that by the time evening rolls around, I got nothing left. I don't have the energy level. And it is really hard because I used to be very active. Not only was I teaching, but, then there would be days that I would also teach at our church. Our daughter and I will a lot of times do things after school, and whenever I got home in the evenings, we had our full garden, and not so much of it had to fall on you. I could actually keep up with it.
Yep.
Instead of it, so much of the taking care of the garden, weeding, doing all the camming. I did a lot of that on my own. I was very active, and now not being able to do all those, I think I have to definitely pick and choose what I do and lean on those around me to help and fill in the gaps whenever. Because there's a lot of things that I can't do.
So I'm sure because you used to do a lot of, like you said, you used to do a lot of that stuff. So how does that affect, I mean, I'm sure that affects you mentally.
It did for a very long time. It drastically affected me mentally and emotionally. I got very down on myself, thinking, I'm worthless, I can't do all this stuff, and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, there were several times where it was really, really hard. And I'm not saying that there aren't times where it's not, because there still are times that it's very difficult because there's something that I want to do and I just can't. Whenever there's something that our daughter wants to go and do, and it's something that's going to take a lot of energy, there's a lot of times that I have to be cautious, and I have to make sure that she can be energetic and going crazy and all that kind of stuff, but I have a place where I can sit, put my feet up. Don't put my feet up, then they swell up and it's crazy. But there's a lot of those times that I have to be very cautious, and unfortunately there's times that I just have to say, I'm sorry, but I can't. And that's so hard, because while she is very understanding, it's really hard to tell her that I can't do those things. And but for the most part, I've gotten really good at looking at the positive of it. The positive of, I still get to be here. I still get to spend time with you. I still get to see her grow up. I still get to do all these things. I still get to go and do things for Christ. And so it's a lot easier whenever you focus on those positive things.
Yeah.
And what you do get to do instead of focusing on the things I can't do anymore.
And again, that's why it's so important to have a personal relationship with Christ, because if you didn't have that personal relationship with Christ, then I mean, I'm sure that your mental and everything like that would be totally different. I mean, imagine us BC trying to deal with the things that we deal with now.
I mean, I can give you examples of that. I mean, there were plenty of times BC, with my jobs, I walked and I stood all day, every day. And so it was so easy to get caught up on those things that I couldn't do and get mad and take it out on you and stuff like that. And there were a lot of times that it was like that. And I don't feel like I do that now. I feel like instead I focus on those positive things. There are still times where the negative creeps in, but typically it doesn't get to the point where I'm taking it out on those around me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely see a change. Christ has made the difference in both of us, honestly.
Absolutely.
Because there was just ways that we used to react, and now that now we react a totally different way. It reminds me of that quote from The Chosen I like. I once was one way, but now I'm completely different, and the thing that happened in between was him. And I am so thankful for that. So now, kind of, what do you like to do now? I mean, what motivates you now?
I mean, the main thing that motivates me is my family in Christ. I mean, everything comes down to that. Everything that I do now is either something that I'm doing for Christ or something that I'm doing for my family, which a lot of times is also for Christ. So most of the stuff that I do now, there are still some things that I do that are just for my own fun. I enjoy crocheting, doesn't take a lot of energy, and something fun.
No, you can sit right there and
Exactly.
do that all day long.
I can just sit there, and so that's something that's fun for me to do. But most of my motivation for the things that I do is making sure that it's something that is edifying to Christ and is something that supports my family.
Yeah, I mean, and my wife, to go back on some of the things that I've talked about on this podcast, one of the things I see my wife do a lot, my wife prays a lot. My wife gets up in the morning and spends time in her word. It's a little bit different each morning depending on what she has to do that day, but I know for a fact that most of the time she does get in it, and I think we can both agree just from each other, when we're not in the word, it's really hard. I mean, you can tell when that other person's not been in the word as well as they should have been.
Absolutely, especially if it's like for several days.
Oh yeah.
Like I can see a drastic change in me. There's some times where whenever our daughter comes down, because a lot of times my Bible study time overlaps with her Bible study time. Well, sometimes her Bible study is a discussion, and she can't do that without having somebody to discuss with. And so there are times, unfortunately, that my Bible study has to kind of get put back to the back burner. And most of the time, whenever I come back home, I just go back into it and do it. But being honest, there's sometimes I don't. There might be something else that comes up, something else I need to do. And I'm just being honest, sometimes it's just that I don't have the desire, and I hate that. But sometimes that is being real, that sometimes whenever I come back home, I just don't want to. And whenever that happens for a few days, I can feel myself reacting differently to her whenever she does something. Or maybe not. I mean, she doesn't even have to do something. Sometimes I just feel myself reacting differently to her, to you, to our animals, to everything. And so that's a lot of times a huge wake-up call for me of, okay, this is not okay. We can't go this way. And I can also see that in you as well, whenever you know.
Yeah.
And, and sometimes it doesn't take several days,
Sometimes
it's just a one-day thing of, or even not doing enough. Like, even if, say, I do my Bible study, but I don't spend my time in prayer. Well, okay, but I haven't gotten the full effect of it. I haven't actually asked God what He wants me to do today and given Him the chance to show me. And if I don't do that, if all I'm doing is reading the word and then moving on, then I'm not giving the full effect of it. And that in itself even can be enough to affect how my day goes. A lot of times you might not necessarily notice it as much. It takes several days sometimes before you guys can actually notice that something's not right, but I can feel it myself.
Yeah.
And it's a choice of, am I going to let this continue or am I going to fix this?
Oh yeah. I mean, and like you said, I know that I notice whenever it's on me, if I go a day, or like you said, if I don't even spend enough time in God's word, I can realize it. If I just kind of skim over it and I read it and say, okay, well that's it, and then I hurry up and say a prayer and okay, it's time to start the day, then I notice that I basically shortchanged God in my time with Him, and the feeling that God would have given me, I didn't get, because I didn't spend that time at His feet, and I didn't spend that time, learning from Him and reading His word. But sometimes that happens. Sometimes we get busy as a family, sometimes maybe somebody wakes up sooner or whatever. I mean, things, whenever you're dealing with a family, sometimes things you just got to roll with the punches sometimes. One of the things that I wanted to talk about too was in what ways do you still find to serve Christ? I mean, you talked about serving, and I know you kind of mentioned Monday nights, but just kind of go, like, what are some ways that you find how you serve Him?
So one of the ways that I'm currently serving him is a lot of times I will make food for most of the time it's our one night a week event that we have. It's a Celebrate Recovery group.
Celebrate Recovery, yeah.
And so most of the time that's where I do spend time because I do make food there. Sometimes I will occasionally make food for our kids as well, our kids groups that we have. I don't do that as often. I was doing it more frequently, and it just became way too much, and I couldn't do it. And so unfortunately, I did have to come away from that. But I do also fill in sometimes whenever our lovely, amazing slides person is gone. I fill in for her sometimes, and I also do help out in our kids' department on Sunday mornings.
Yep. So looking back at your life, can you see really honestly where Christ has brought you through, how he's brought you through? I mean, can you see the mile markers where Christ has really been present in your life?
Yeah. Sometimes even before, looking back, there's several times even before I actually truly knew Christ that I know I could see that he led a lot of those things that happened. And then definitely since then, you can just see how he's put pieces together to make things and make them go exactly how he wants them to.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing. And that really is honestly, that's why I wanted you to come and I wanted you to talk because, we all have different walks of life. And I never wanted this to be just my walk. I've always wanted, I say it every week that if you have a comment or if you want to share something, please share it and we can discuss it. I haven't gotten a lot of those recently, which by the way, I should also mention this since we are talking. I don't have a Facebook page because, well, technically I'm not allowed to have a Facebook page, but I mean, you post for me. You also run the I Am Matthew podcast at gmail.com. Anytime that anybody emails that, you check that. That's I have no access to that. You also post the episodes. Literally all that I do is the content creation, and then you take care of pretty much everything else.
Well, you also edit it because I don't have that knowledge.
Oh yeah, I also edit it too, which and kind of just a behind the scenes type thing. We're kind of having issues with my mobile recording. It keeps wanting to lock up on us, but that's okay. We're gonna keep going. And hopefully this just doesn't sound like a bunch of things being pieced together. So
hopefully not, but I think it'll be okay. Well, gotta work it all out. It'll be fine.
Absolutely, gotta work it all out. But but this is something that I've wanted to do. This is part of the I Am Matthew podcast is getting other people's experiences because like I said before, we don't all have the same experience. We don't all go through the same things. Even you and I, we've shared 19 years together. And the experience is still different, even though that we're walking so close together. So I just think it's absolutely amazing just kind of hearing your heart. I mean, I'm learning things just sitting here talking to you that I may not have known before, and it draws me closer to you. And that brings up another point of why, because we talked about your parents didn't go to church because they didn't feel like they needed to go to church to be a Christian. And, my parents, they just didn't feel like they needed to go at all. But that's another thing. I'm blessed because I have you in my life and I'm here with you every day and we're both walking this out. And could you imagine how that would have looked like if one of us would have came to Christ, but the other one wouldn't have?
I actually do that a lot. I honestly thought about it that night because I knew in my heart that even before I came to know Christ, to me, divorce was not an option. But where we were at was not sustainable.
Yeah.
If we didn't have a good marriage, and if things would have continued down that road, it would have been very bad, and it would have been a very bad situation for me and our daughter.
Yeah.
And so I have thought about it a lot. What would have happened would have had to have come down to divorce if you wouldn't have been saved as well. Or how would you have gotten through it if you would have been saved that night and I wouldn't have? I still think, unfortunately, the same same thing would have been true. Even though to us divorce was not an option, I honestly believe that had we not been saved at that point in time, it would have been too hard for one of us or the other of us. And I think, unfortunately, it would have ended that way. I don't think we would still be together. And I think that, to me, is a huge thing of knowing that 100% God had his hand in that, to know that we were that close to being saved at the same time. I mean, because neither one of us were even close to having a relationship with Christ. I mean, we were both horrible people. I mean, we were.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we played the part really well. We played the I'm a good person part, and then behind our own closed doors, we were totally reckless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that would have been sustainable for either of us. And it wouldn't have been, I don't really want to say fair, but I mean fair really, to the person who was saved, to expect them to continue on in that. Because it's hard enough getting through this life and everything that we deal with because of the consequences of everything that we did before. And I can't imagine trying to get through that without both of us being on the same page in regards to Christ. Because you can't be on the same page with everything else unless you're on the exact same page with that.
Yeah, and it says in 2 Corinthians 6:14, it says, "Do not be yoked together with those who do not believe. For what partnership is there between righteousness and lawlessness? Or what fellowship does light have with the darkness?" So, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I can't imagine, because I know that there are people that go to our church that one of them believes and one of them doesn't. And that's...
my grandma is in that situation.
Yeah.
My grandmother has been married for over 60 years. And she was honestly probably my biggest influence growing up of being a Christian, because she's been a Christian my entire life. And she didn't go to church religiously whenever I was a kid. She tried to, but my grandfather stopped her a lot. And so now that she's older, she just goes anyway and deals with whatever. But, they've been married for over 60 years, and he is definitely not a believer. And so I see that, and I see how hard it is for her. You know, she obviously prays for him and tries to help him along, but there's been so many times in their life together that she's just been absolutely miserable, that they could have gotten through it so much better if they both would have been on the same page and they both would have had Christ.
Oh yeah, and I totally agree with that. So, I'm very thankful that, because and I really never thought about that. Like, I guess up until now, I just I became a Christian, and from my understanding, whenever I was talking to you while I was still in jail, you had become a Christian. And so it was just kind of like, okay, we're on the same page. Okay, so now she's not going to fight me, because I know I'm going to want to go to church, and I know I'm going to want to start reading the Bible, and I'm going to want to start drawing closer to Christ. And I never really thought about that. I never really thought, because in my mind, I guess I was in jail, and my biggest thought was don't die. That was my biggest thing was, okay, I'm already in a bad situation and I don't want to make it worse. So I guess I really didn't have that chance like you did of what's going to happen if, me being a Christian and my wife not being a Christian. How is that going to look? It was just kind of, I called you and everything was okay. Or it wasn't okay, but it was...
I think
sounded
that conversation would have been completely different.
Yeah.
Because, yes, I've always been very loving to you and very understanding. You being arrested was not the first horrible thing that happened to us.
Absolutely.
There were several times that we had major issues beforehand. And yes, all of those times, obviously, I forgave you and we moved through them and everything. But I don't know. I honestly do believe that had Christ not gotten a hold of me, I think that conversation would have gone completely different whenever you called me.
I'm sure it would have became completely different, because, just thinking about UBC, that it wouldn't have been a good deal if Christ hadn't. So I'm now that you brought that up, I'm very thankful the fact that Christ saved us, how he saved us, because he had to save you before I had a chance to speak to you, or otherwise, there could have been a lot of hurtful things said. I mean, which most of it would have been very warranted, but the fact is,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, especially once you've come to know Christ, because I mean, even if I wouldn't have been saved, you were saved. And you became a new person in that moment. And so none of that stuff mattered. So even if I would have said those hurtful things, it wouldn't have mattered because that's not who you were.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm totally on the same page with you. But so, and I thank God every day for you. I am so thankful for you. I am so thankful that God has put you in my life. I know everybody talks about, oh, my wife, she's that Proverbs 31 woman. And the thing is, Kaci, is that you model that for me every day. I know every day is not easy, but I know most days you do your best, you give your all, and that's what God requires of us, right? Is for us, for him to give us our all. And for anybody that doesn't know Christ and doesn't know, Proverbs 31, I want to just read a couple of the verses. It starts out, and it really where it talks about the Proverbs 31 woman, it starts off in verse 10, and the very first thing that Solomon says is, "Who can find a wife of noble character? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will not lack anything good. She rewards him with good and not evil, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with willing bands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from far away. She rises while it is still night and provides food for her household and portions for her female servants. She evaluates a field and buys it, and she plants a vineyard with her earnings." You've always been very, and I think that's part of really kind of what works us together, is the fact that sometimes I'm very, very short-sighted on things. I think what can take care of the situation now. And sometimes you have that, well, yes, it's going to take care of that now, but how is that going to affect us further down the road?
Yeah.
So, I'm very appreciative of that. She draws on her strength. Verse 17, she draws on her strength and reveals that her arms are strong. She sees that her profits are good and her lamp never goes out at night. She extends her hands to the spinning staff, and her hands hold the spindle. Her hands reach out to the poor, and she extends her hands to the needy. Again, that totally talks about you, because the simple fact that you're disabled. I mean, you've been classified as disabled, but you don't let that affect you. You continue to help people, even when there's times where I don't feel like you should be helping people, and you continue to give of yourself even whenever your body just doesn't feel like it. And that's one thing that I think very highly of you. She is not afraid for her household when it snows, for all of her household are doubly clothed. She makes her own bed coverings. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known at the city gates, where he sits among the elders of the land. She makes and sells linen garments and delivers belts to the merchants. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she can laugh at the time to come. Her mouth speaks wisdom, and her loving instruction is on her tongue. And that's another thing that I just really feel like just speaks to you, because, I'm very short-sighted in things. Whenever, I can think about what do we need to take care of it right now? And most of the time you are thinking long-term, and it helps me a lot, because I get so caught up in the right here, right now, and you have the wisdom and the knowledge to really think about things coming along. She watches over the activities of her household. I mean, you take care of her. We have a hectic schedule now that we have a 10-year-old girl, and she wants to do gymnastics. She wants to play guitar, play ukulele. She wants to, now apparently we're going to start doing other sports. So, but you watch over the activities of the household, and you're never idle. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also praises her. I know our daughter thinks highly of her, and I do too. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord will be praised. Give her the reward of her labor, and let her works praise her at the city gates. And I'm so thankful that you wanted to sit here with me. I know this is outside of your wheelhouse, especially again, since I know you don't like how you think you sound, but I think
not at all.
well, the thing is though, is that really, quite honestly, I've lived with you for 18 years. So honestly, the only thing that I notice different from you is it sounds like you have a lisp. That is the only thing. And most of the time, I don't even, unless I'm concentrating on it, I really don't hear that either. And so I know for people that are listening now, I mean, this is the only voice they've ever heard. They're not gonna notice those things. I mean, I'm sure now that I said the word lisp, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, she actually did kind of have a lisp. But I'm sure if I wouldn't have said anything, people are gonna be like, man, that sounded awesome.
Hey, it could always be a lot worse. That's my thing. Could be so much worse.
We could be I could be sitting here talking to you in sign language, or you'd have to talk to me in sign language because you wouldn't have been able to do anything else.
Hey, I read a lot of horror stories about people who had the type of cancer I did and the surgeries they had, and I read so many horror stories, and I was so scared about what was going to come. And I mean, even though it was not the ideal outcome, it could have been so much worse.
Oh, I agree. So since this is Finding Hope, I mean, most of our podcasts, well, actually all of our podcast episodes so far is Finding Hope. So for the person that, let's start off just right off the beginning. So a person that grew up in a home that maybe they knew of Christ, but they didn't have that personal relationship. Where can you draw from that, and how can you tell people to find hope in that?
I mean, I think that even whenever you look at the Bible, there's so many places that that says that God is not a respecter of persons. So it doesn't matter how you were brought up. It doesn't matter if you were abused. It doesn't matter if you were brought up in the church. I mean, none of that matters. All that matters is that you do come to Christ. And when you do, He changes you. And all of that other stuff, it doesn't matter. You can come to Him however you are.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what about to the person that maybe their marriage life isn't the greatest? Maybe they are thinking about divorce. What can you speak to that?
I think in some circumstances, unfortunately, that is the only way. I know that is not how God designed it, but I also know that if we're being honest, there's a lot of times that we don't go into a marriage how God designed it. I know we didn't. I mean, we knew how to tell the preacher the right answers so that he allowed us to get married.
I agree.
But we didn't go into it with the right thought process. I mean, we have our unity candle and we have our things that says that God was uniting us and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, yeah, He did, but not because we were doing it the right way, because we weren't.
Oh no, absolutely.
And I think a lot of times people get so caught up on the fact of, I cannot be divorced. And sometimes that really is the only thing that can fix it, especially if you're talking about abuse or situations like that. I mean, sometimes that is what has to happen. And while I know that that's not how God designed it, He also didn't design us to go into marriage in the wrong way. So if we've gone into marriage the wrong way, then unfortunately so often it's destined to fail.
Yeah.
If we're not going into it for the right reason, it's very likely going to fail. And there are success stories like us.
Yes.
But God can get a hold of you, whether it be one or both of you, and God can fix it. God can fix anything that we mess up.
Absolutely, absolutely, amen.
And so I think that there's absolutely those success stories, but I think people also have to understand that unfortunately not always are we a success story. But in those hard times, all we can do is lean on Jesus and listen to Him, because He'll tell us. If we're doing something wrong, He tells us. All we have to do is actually listen to Him. We have to seek Him and listen to Him, and He'll tell us all those things. If we don't, then we make the decision ourselves, and more than likely, we're going to make the wrong decision.
Absolutely.
So all we have to do is delve into His Word and spend time with Him, pray, and ask Him to guide us, because He 100% will.
I agree with that. I agree with that a lot. Like you said, ours is a success story, and I think I've talked about this on other podcasts, that if you're in a relationship or you're in a marriage and it's abusive, like a physically abusive one, God's not going to want you to be a part of that. And maybe later on down the road, maybe God can change one or change the other person.
Hey, we've gotten to see that, so that's fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that in our own life. And that's another story for another time. But, I'm just saying that, God did ordain this and he did, but there are just some things that sometimes, unfortunately, it has to come to that. But the biggest thing is you got to be seeking God. You got to be able to be spending time in his word, and you got to be listening to him. Because if you don't do that, there is so much stuff in this world that can come and creep in and say, this is how we're supposed to do it, that, oh, well, they don't look the same way they used to. They don't have the same amount of money that they used to. So, oh, well, that means I don't need to be with them. Because I've heard that lots of times, and I know you've heard that too, where somebody says, oh, well, God was just telling me I need to leave my husband. Well, why? Well, because we're just two totally different people. That's just because you're
So are you.
Yeah. We're just two totally different people. Okay, but the thing is that God put you guys together. I mean, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than that. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to ask you to expound on is, what about for the person that is facing a cancer diagnosis or has gone through cancer and radiation and treatment, and maybe they don't have any hope? What can you say to them?
Well, I know for me, going through my cancer treatments and that time in the hospital and everything, that is the closest I have ever felt to God. And honestly, it wasn't because I was doing that much different, because I still do my Bible studies now. Honestly, probably less then, because I couldn't. I mean, there were so many things that I couldn't do. And even to try to sit there and read. I mean, yeah, I was still listening to my worship music. I was still listening to the Bible and stuff like that. But to read and to write and some of that stuff was really, really hard. Whenever I was going through those treatments, I mean, I was physically getting sick a lot. So,
Yeah.
that kind of puts a hindrance on things.
Absolutely.
So, but I know that he was so close to me. And I will say, the one thing that I did do differently during that time is my prayer life. I know that I prayed so much more during that time, because honestly, I did want to stay here. I knew that if I wasn't here, that I would be with him and that would be okay. But that's not what I wanted. I was selfish. I didn't want that. I wanted to still be here with you. I wanted to still watch our daughter grow up. And so I spent so much time praying for God to keep me here, but for him to use it. Because for me, any struggle that I've gone through and anything that we've been through, I just want God to use it. I don't want it to be in vain. I want it to give hope to somebody else. I want to be able to help somebody else through it. I just want him to use it. And so I spent so much time praying, and I feel like that was probably part of it, of why I felt so close. But just knowing that in that time, that God had a plan. I didn't know the plan. I didn't know if the plan was to keep me here. I didn't know if the plan was to use me for the nurses. I didn't know if the plan was to take me home. I didn't know. But I could rest in the fact that he had a plan, and he did know.
Yes.
And I think anytime we're facing something difficult, that's just what we have to hold on to. Obviously, some of the things that we go through in life is because of sin, whether it be our own, somebody else's, or just the fact that we live in a fallen world. But even with all of that, it's not outside of God's plan.
Absolutely. So we just gotta keep the biggest thing that I hope everybody that's listening realize, the biggest thing that why we get through the things that we get through is Jesus.
100%.
Because without Jesus, there is no hope. That's why we find, my episode title that says find hope, but I hope you guys realize that the strain and all of that stuff is Jesus. And the thing is that I couldn't make any other podcast any other way, because honestly, if it wasn't for Jesus, none of this would be possible. And so, but Kaci, my darling wife, I am so thankful that you was a part of this. I know this is outside of your comfort zone, but I do want you to know how sorry I am for all that I've put you through, how much you mean. I know you know, but I want you to know how much you mean to me. And I know that people are going to find hope in this. You know why? Because you give me a hope for a better tomorrow. And so I am very thankful, and I love you, sweetheart. So that is it. I really hope that you guys liked our discussion. If you guys have any questions you'd like to answer or have any comments you'd like to share with Kaci, please email her at the iammatthewpodcast@gmail.com, because after all, she does run that email. I hope this has encouraged you and that the light has overcome some darkness today. I love you, we love you, and thank you for listening. Remember to keep putting God first, live for Him, and watch Him move in your life.